There were answers from Ohio State coach Ryan Day, and now there are going to be questions for the Buckeyes captains. That's right. It's a Talkin' Tuesday on the beat. He is not television's Adam
I'm
Peter.
not.
I'm still Austin Ward, but that's
Yes.
Jeremy Birmingham. We've got 2 days of availability this week with the Buckeyes getting ready for that season opener on September 5th. We've already heard from the head coach. Was there one answer that you were still hoping to get before we go into questions for that group of 7?
I think I would have liked a little bit more clarity on things when it comes to exactly what Ryan Day sees the future of the tight end room being, because it was somewhat surprising after all the conversation in the offseason about Nate Roberts is our clear tight end one. He's the guy we trust. He's the guy we can count on. To have Bennett Christian and Mason Williams, and again, this is just parsing through everything and the way Ryan Day says stuff. When he was asked about the tight ends on Monday, he said Bennett Christian, Mason Williams, and Nate Roberts. But he said it in that order. And it was surprising to me. And
No accidents.
We believe there are no accidents. And then he clarified and said those 3 have separated from Hunter Welsing and Max LeBlanc. And so we'll see what that means. I think eventually so much of this is just going to come down to personnel groupings and how much fullback is being played in Arthur Smith's offense, because that will still be Nate Roberts' role when that is out there. So I guess I would have liked a little bit of, is Nate Roberts not where you thought he would be? And if so, why? Because I think that there was so much discussion from spring on with the presumption that, okay, this is what you know, and then you figure out the other guys, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
And he was earning, Dude of the Week honors.
Yep.
Physically, he looks completely different than year one, which is an understandable output of being in this building for another full year and working with Mickey Marotti and Anthony Schlegel and that whole support staff. I think it's a reminder that, and this is going to be dipping into the cliche, how developmental that position is, how long it takes to play it at the highest level. And especially if you're now throwing more NFL style concepts at someone like Nate Roberts than he would have seen even a year ago. So I don't know that it is cause for concern. That would be an LDRD scenario. But if you're trying to replace, maybe we've diminished this too much.
A second and third round pick?
2 first 3-round draft picks in Max Clare and Will Kazmarek, with multiple years of starting experience at Ohio State for Kazmarek and multiple years of Big Ten experience for Max Clare. That walked out the door.
Yeah.
And replacing that is not going to be as easy as maybe we thought it was going to be when we were evaluating groups. Like, check out these 5 guys physically and what Hunter Welsing did at Northwestern. Like, some of that doesn't seem to be translating directly right now for the totality of that group. But to your point, it's going to need to, because Ohio State is not going to fundamentally, and Ryan Day is not going to fundamentally change what he wants to do in terms of an offensive philosophy, especially when Arthur Smith is going to use those tight ends and fullbacks as much as we expect him to.
Well, I think that's the question. I go back to Big Ten Media Day, right? And we're talking to Julian Sayin and asking him about the offense and what to expect. And when he mentioned the 2021-2022 offense, it starts to, maybe some things start to click a little bit. Like, maybe they're going to be a little bit more 11 personnel this year, because maybe you have too many receivers that are good enough to play. And if that changes the number of tight ends that need to be available and ready to go, fine. If it's strictly a situation where maybe Nate Roberts isn't like eating up the blocking aspect, and that's why Bennett Christian gets brought up first, because as Bennett Christian said last week, he wants to be Will Kazmarek. Mason Williams talking about how his love is pancaking offensive linemen.
Got 2 guys
defensive linemen
who I've certainly adopted a Will Kazmarek mindset.
So you just wonder how it all fits in. But ultimately, that to me is the overarching question of the entire roster. Like, there is nothing that seems really concrete at any position other than quarterback. We know the running backs, who they're going to be. We know Jeremiah Smith is who he is. We know the interior of the offensive line. But it seems like more than ever, this is just a team that says, hey, we don't need to have starters. We need to have contributors and guys who are ready to go whenever their number's called. And I think for the most part, they feel like they do. But it is interesting to me, because we've been talking, when we did our position review, we're talking about tight end, and maybe you get to 5, but maybe there's only 3.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like right now Ohio State is considering 5, but there's a long season. Things can change in a month's time. We'll see how that all plays out. But there's now 3 weeks of practices and 2 scrimmages for Ohio State to evaluate. If they thought that there was a lot of confidence in 5, I think I strongly believe that Ryan Day would have said that.
Yeah.
And if there was, because he was asked specifically if there had been 1, to elevate to the top of that depth chart and be that someone they could count on for virtually every single snap. And that was when he pivoted out and said, well, there's three guys. And that's, again, going back to a little bit of a shift in the way that we have to view things, that a traditional depth chart that is carved in stone and is going to stay that static throughout the year probably never existed, but it definitely doesn't right now. Yeah. And that requires a change in thinking. But, we'll see who's out there, and if they do play all three of them in the opener, more specifically if they do that against Texas.
Yeah, and I think Texas will be the litmus test for all of it, really, because whatever happens against Ball State, and that is one of the questions that will be asked over these next 10 days, really, is how much are you preparing for Ball State versus how much are you preparing for Texas? How much are you viewing Ball State as a glorified scrimmage, a warm-up game, a tune-up, versus a traditional season opener where there's all this energy and excitement. Like, everyone's kind of just, all right, let's get to week 2. But I don't know that that's really, wrong. But I'm interested also to hear what I would have liked to have had a chance to hear is, did the defense bouncing back on Saturday's scrimmage, was that what you expected? Or were the offense disappointing? Was it the defense just adjusting because that's what Matt Patricia does? And how fun it's been for Ryan Day to sit back and watch these two NFL head coaches scheme up stuff against each other, because you don't generally see that in training camp. You don't see the offense and defense scheming against each other, but they are.
Yeah, and I think that would have been what I anticipated. The mood around here, thinking about the defense being challenged not just by their coaching staff, but by Peyton Pierce and a captain saying that that's not acceptable. I would have bet a lot of money that Matt Patricia was going to put some scheme in place so the defense had a chance then to feel better about itself and carry some momentum into the end of game week prep and getting ready for Ball State in the opener and all that. So that part doesn't surprise me. Honestly, I don't think that Ryan Day would be surprised about that either. I don't think he would feel – we know that he's never happy about anything. But if the offense dominated both scrimmages, I think that would put him on more alert than anything else.
Yeah, he seemed like he was in a pretty good mood on Monday for the most part, and I think that's why people are asking,
until somebody pointed that out.
Are you happy? Because obviously no coach is happy at this point of the season, but Ryan Day also said no, everyone likes where they are at this point of the season because you're not playing anybody else. You're not losing. You don't know what you don't know about your team. So as you continue to figure that out, I think for Ohio State defense that is going to rely on some pieces that one of them, the captain in Kenyatta Jackson, one in Jermaine Matthews. I'm interested in some mentality. I would like vibe checks on these guys right now because I do feel like there are a couple volatile pieces. And if this was a stock watch show, I would probably mention volatility in the market because we've heard so much up and down about Jermaine Matthews in the last few weeks. We watched him. He's out here. He's in a bad mood. And I said last week, I think that's good. But I also feel like there's going to have to be a point when Jermaine, Kenyatta, some of these guys that are carrying a little extra chip on their shoulder get the sit down with Ryan Day and say, are you playing with emotion or is emotion playing with you? Because I think that some of the feedback we got from Saturday was that maybe there was a little bit too much of that from Seven.
I think it might have gone a little bit too far in that direction on Saturday, which I think was foreshadowed by his appearance on Thursday. You can get a vibe check on Wednesday night. We'll have the normal stock report on Wednesday on the beat. By this time next week, it'll be a real Talkin' Tuesday for game week, and Ryan Day will be back on the microphone with his final updates before the Buckeyes kick it off. But Wednesday evening, so school starts on Tuesday, practices shift to the evening. Wednesday night in prime time, all 7 captains scheduled to be available. So that's a vibe check for you.
It's a vibe check.
Whose vibe do you want to check?
Well, you know what I want to know, and this might sound stupid, it might sound perfunctory. For someone like Jeremiah Smith, who gets tabbed as a captain, everyone's known that Jeremiah Smith is a captain for Ohio State from the day he walked in the building.
I think he just needs there just has to be a different term for it.
Yeah, I want to know why it matters to him. Because I've seen him, he tweeted the salute thing, he posted another picture of himself with Ryan Day shaking, there's something different right now about Jeremiah, and I want to know what's fueling it. Because he's lost games
I don't think he likes to lose games.
Yeah, but he's lost games before. And I'm wondering why he seems to have such a different I want to lead this team vibe right now, as opposed to just I want to be the best fake MC on earth.
The greatest fake MC. That's the Lonely Island, so he'll never be that. I think it is about losing those last 2 games because he's only got 2 years for us to evaluate of what he did at Ohio State. And he erased those 2 losses in 2024 by going on an all-time tear, destroying Tennessee, putting on a performance for the ages in the Rose Bowl, accepting that he was going to be a decoy against Texas in the Cotton Bowl, and then catching third in Jeremiah to win a national championship. He didn't have to end his year with that bad taste in his mouth. And for someone who plays at the level of Jeremiah Smith, to have to deal with that, and the way that he pointed, I think back to when we talked to him in March, forget about Big Ten Media Days, the start of camp, the number of times that he referenced what happened against Miami and the block on the screen and the pick six. And I think it's in some ways like encouraging for him that he takes that personally, but also like he shouldn't have to shoulder all that. There were a lot of other issues on that play that have nothing to do with Jeremiah Smith. But either way, if the output is still the same, that he becomes this maniacal version of someone who was already the best player in college football, on top of, I think, the way that his mind works, losing the Biletnikoff, losing the Heisman Trophy, losing the Big Ten Championship, and losing in the Cotton Bowl. Like those
to his home city.
I think that's all of it. That's what's channeling this. There is so much Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant to him that he almost becomes a captain by default.
We saw it a year ago with Jeremiah early in the season. He was very, very angry, even starting his sophomore season, starting his second year. You remember talking to him after the Texas game. He was pissed off. He did not like the way he played. And I want to know from his perspective, because there were times during the 2025 season in the middle point of things where I think if we're asking Jeremiah to be honest, maybe the challenge wasn't enough because the way that the games were going all of last year. And then and Caleb Downs talked about this, I think, on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark, about how Ohio State was not ready to play Indiana and Miami because they didn't expect those games to be a game. They didn't know what to think when Indiana was still in the game in the fourth quarter. And I wonder if that is serving as a added fuel to Jeremiah to say, hey, I'm not losing 2 games again. He's lost 2 games in the last 2 years. I mean, doesn't happen all the time at Ohio State. But in this world of college football where you get 15, 16 games, you're going to lose more games. But you also have an opportunity to firmly establish yourself. And he's doing that. He's always done it. But it looks like he's just got a little bit different thing to him right now. Demon time.
Oof. I think that seems to be the case with his quarterback as well. And I know that that's been a running theme throughout the offseason. How is Julian saying different? How is he different physically? How are his press conferences different? How is his communication in the weight room different? And you check every single box along the way. That I don't know that should come as any major surprise to anybody, but we're on the brink of him starting this year. And you talk about something that we don't see every year at Ohio State. Certainly for Ryan Day, it's a starting quarterback for a second consecutive year. And Ryan Day did allude to that on Monday. When you have Carson Hensman and Julian Sayin back, what that allows your offense to do. He called it the Rolodex of plays. But I don't think that that's the most important part for Julian Sayin. Yes, it does help you expand the offense because that will also apply to Jeremiah Smith. It will also apply to Brandon Ennis. It should apply to Bo Jackson as well. But and we've had this debate, and I've been on the island over here. Julian doesn't need to be a captain. He's going to be important no matter what as the quarterback. But if he did enough that it left no doubt in the minds of the rest of that team, and the votes are confidential. We don't know how many he got, but certainly they didn't exclude him from that. He got enough to be named that. Are we still going to continue to see more growing comfort from him on the field, off the field, in front of a microphone, communicating in the huddle? And what does all that look like? Because the true test is not how great your offseason was. It's going to be on the road on September 12th and handling pressure. And there's going to be times that the offensive line will not be perfect. No offensive line ever is going to be. How does he respond to those scenarios now that he's seen them before? Because it's not just Jeremiah Smith that's unhappy about losing those last 2 games. Julian Sayin had to go do post-game press conferences at a podium after both of them.
Yeah. I think that Julian's way, again, I've been on the other island, which is saying I think he needs to be a captain. I don't think it was changing anything about Julian's importance to this team. I think it's changing what Julian feels comfortable with himself being. And I think that's really why it matters. And that's why, for me, another thing I want to try to glean on Wednesday night is, what does Brandon Ennis see himself as? Does Brandon Ennis still see himself as that elite future NFL receiver that he thought he was when he was coming into Ohio State. Obviously, the road to here has not gone exactly how he anticipated or would have wanted, but what are his expectations for Brandon Inniss, the player? We've heard so much for so long about him and every other part of the game, every other part of leadership. What does Brandon Inniss having a successful on-the-field season look like for Brandon Inniss? And the same question applies to Kenyatta Jackson, honestly. Like, what does you've done okay. You've had a pretty good career. You're being counted on in this new position, but the fan base is over here going, I don't know, I'd rather see Brock Boyd. And I'm not going to ask it in that way, but I am curious, like, how is Brandon Inniss fueled differently this year? Because he looks a lot different. Physically, he looks a lot different. I think he'd punch you
if you asked it in that way.
Well, I mean, I think, but he knows it. He's not dumb.
I know. And to his credit, even before camp started, we talked with Brandon about that in the summer series on the Talking Tuesday, and he was like, he's aware of that, and these are not the numbers that he thought he would post at Ohio State through 3 years. Didn't necessarily even think that he was going to be a 4-year player based on the expectations around him when he was coming out of South Florida. He's given, I think, really thoughtful answers about that. I think the interesting part is now that was July. Mm-hmm. This is 11 days, going to be 10 days away from the opener. How has that role evolved now that you have like actual game plans going in, multiple scrimmages, which I don't think he did a ton on Saturday last week because he didn't need to. But I think that's almost a more difficult question for Brandon Inniss to answer than it should be for Kenyatta Jackson, because Kenyatta Jackson's opportunities to get, whether that's raw numbers, whether that's impact for the defense, snap count, like that's all, I think, pretty clear what that is for him. And for Brandon Inniss, it's more dependent on, well, you also play with Jeremiah Smith and you're not a running back. And what's the tempo of the offense going to be like? Who hits a big play elsewhere that gets you off the field in a hurry? And so I don't know that he can answer that, but Kenyatta Jackson, I think, should have a much clearer idea of what that means for him.
You'd think. I mean, it seems pretty clear. We've talked at length about Kenyatta's potential impact for this defense and what he does to elevate it. When we were talking on Monday Snap Judgments, we're talking what position could Ohio State still, where would you think they would add someone if some defensive end became available from the NFL? Is that not a spot you'd think that they would be willing to challenge a guy like Kenyatta? I think they would. And so I'm interested to see from him, like, what's different?
Other than tight end and defensive end, I don't think that they would consider it anywhere else.
Yeah, I just don't see any other spot. So if you look at that and you have a captain and a 50-year guy leading that room and you're still having that conversation, how does Kenyatta feel about where things are for him? Does he believe that this season will be the season he's been waiting to have? And or is he going to be surly about it? And because he has at times been able to just put that on display. But I just think this entire group of captains is very, very interesting. Peyton will not say anything. Like, Peyton's proven it. Like, even though he hasn't proven it on the field. And I think that's what makes this group weird to me. Like, you have high level productivity and output from Jeremiah, from Julian, from Austin Birm, and then you have a bunch of guys who you're just counting on to say, we are waiting for you to push all the chips in and be the guy. Peyton's done that. Jalen's done that. How do players like Kenyatta change the way people remember his career here?
I'm looking forward to talking to Austin Birm about his shift in role. At least that's what it seems like. About near certain that's going to happen at right guard, because you and I both know, and we've made plenty of references to it on the beat throughout the month of August. Like, he made himself at home. He got to establish a home and a presence and a foundation at left tackle a year ago. And there were a couple days and a couple glimpses of him back out there, and to me it felt natural. And I know that I guess we'd have to have LDAS here, mm-hmm. because when he sits down and when he's asked, what were the conversations like? Do you have a preference? And he will say, no, I will play anywhere that Ohio State needs me to, and I will do whatever is best for the Buckeyes. That is not a bold P. That's a spoiler. That will happen on Wednesday night. LDAS, I think he might say LT.
And I think that LDAS should be told, pretty frankly, a year from now, you're going to have no choice. So it doesn't matter. Like, play them all. Learn how to do everything.
Yeah. But he already does know how to do them all.
Make yourself valuable. and understand. And Ryan Day alluded to it a little bit on Monday when he said, we think Austin's an NFL guard. So why not give him the opportunity to lean into it? Last year, one of the things he said, why it felt so at home at left tackle, was because that's the only time in his entire football career he's played the same position the entire season.
Yeah.
So if you can go into this year and play an entire season at right guard, I'm sure once he gets the call from an NFL team, they're going to say, hey, how did it feel? I said, I finally felt at home. Because he just wants some consistency and some to know where he's going to line up. And unfortunately for Austin, the ability to do that depends solely on Philip Daniels and Ian Moore. It has nothing to do with Austin Sareveld. So he will, to your point, he will say, I will go wherever the coaches need me. And I think he will say, I enjoyed playing left tackle, but I am willing to do this because it's better for my future, or better for this team. And cool. But, being a left tackle is a pretty cool job in football.
Yeah, well, and
being a right guard doesn't feel like glamorous all the time. You kind of get lost.
Yeah. I don't think so.
A lot of beef in there.
It's also going to put a big spotlight on Ian Moore. He will not be available on Wednesday night. Again, that's our next availability back at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. We'll have Snappy Jays following that on Wednesday evening. Then we won't be back in here until next Talking Tuesday when Ryan Day is on the microphone to get ready for the opener against Ball State. Tomorrow on the beat, that's right, it's stock time. And it's going to be, I think, pretty interesting. There's a number of ways that we can go coming out of the second scrimmage. Looking forward to breaking that down with my guy, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. This has been a Talking Tuesday minus the King. We'll see you soon.